Authorities in Russia's Belgorod region claim Ukrainian forces have been firing artillery across the border, hitting the village of Zhuravlyovka. Now, that attack left one person dead and 4 others wounded, all of whom were Ukrainian citizens who had recently fled to Russia. Now, this comes as hundreds of Ukrainian refugees flee into Russia, as was recommended by the Russian-backed head of the region. The Russian army and volunteers have helped the evacuation, with Belgorod authorities saying that all these refugees, for example, are being provided with all the necessary care. They'll also be given that of temporary housing. Now, this influx of refugees was triggered recently when Kiev's military forces took back control of a number of towns in the Kharkov region. We'll show you this moving map on the program, gives you a clearer idea. Russia withdrew its troops from Ukraine's northeast region, deploying them essentially southwards here to Donetsk to try and bolster their forces there. This is part of the former contact line, by the way. Meantime, as we understand, Kiev has retaken the key cities of Kharkov, Balakleya, I should say, and Izium. The latest now being that claims of threats are being made against anyone in these regions who cooperated with Russia.
All collaborators, all Russian specialists who come to Ukraine, all Russian officials, teachers, kindergarten workers should know that they are criminals and that there will be no sympathy towards them. Otherwise, either death or prison awaits them.
Collaborators must pay the maximum price, either legally or physically, in terms of combat.
Now, fears about Ukrainian action in the reclaimed territories have been growing after the country's deputy prime minister said that some Russian teachers there had already been arrested. As we understand, the teachers could face up to 12 years in prison. And the head of the Kharkov region's civil military administration claims the Ukrainian army and foreign powers have turned many towns into lawless zones.
We are now receiving concrete information that looting and killings by the armed forces of Ukraine is out of control in a number of towns. All this is done under the control of Western intelligence agencies. We've received information that mercenaries are driving around Kupiansk and shooting people.
Earlier in the program, I had a war correspondent, Thomas Roper, on with me live, and he believes that Kiev is violating human rights. He also says the West is turning a blind eye.
Everybody who is working with the Russians in these territories has to be afraid of consequences now from Kiev. Teachers, whatever, somebody who's working in a city administration just for, I don't know, providing the city with electricity. They are all, in the eyes of Kiev, collaborators. And if we think this till the end, this means they would, well, I don't know, maybe half of the population would be in prison after that. So these crazy laws are enforced already for weeks. If they talk about death, then we are talking about just uncontrolled shooting in the street of these cities. What I even hear from some victims. On the other hand, I don't know any example which says it's comparable with human rights, that you get prison for receiving another citizenship. So I don't see that there's any civilized explanation for this kind of behavior or this kind of announcements. We have so many things which are happening in Ukraine, and the Western press is just not mentioning it at all. It's a tragedy, but that when we see any reaction from Western countries, I don't have any clue and any hint that this might happen. We have seen this in the last 8 years. The West is very good in closing its eyes.